Okay, hi. Welcome to this series, Matlab, the language. This is kind of a companion series to another series I recorded called Matlab, the software, where I show you how to use the kind of interface of Matlab. So what all of the windows mean, what all the buttons do, the kind of different file types that it makes, essentially getting you to a point where you can open a Matlab file and run it. If you were, for example, an RA on an experiment and you need to run that experiment in Matlab, the goal of that video is to get you there. The goal of this series is to teach you kind of how to write Matlab code. So in addition to being a piece of software, Matlab is also a programming language. And in this series, we'll address the kind of language side of it. So the first thing that's kind of key to all of everything else we're going to be doing is assigning what's called variables. So a variable is essentially a kind of name that you give to a particular piece of data. So that data could be like a word, it could be a number, it could correspond to some object on the screen once you get into the more kind of advanced side of things. So we're going to start off with just very simply assigning a variable to the number 1. So we go x equals 1. And I'm just typing this into the command window rather than making a script or anything like that. So you can see it pops up over here in the right in the workspace. So we now have a variable called x with a value of 1. We can change that by just assigning something else to it using the equals sign. So we can go x equals 2. And over here in the workspace, x is now equals to 2. You might notice that whenever I assign it, it then kind of tells me what I've done afterwards in the command window. That's fine for right now, but if we were doing like a more complicated script, that can get really annoying. So to mute the output, you just put a semicolon at the end. So x equals 2, semicolon. So now it doesn't tell us what the output was. If you just kind of put something in the command window and don't assign the output to any kind of variable. So if I just type 2, it goes into a variable. It's kind of a placeholder variable. It's just called ans, short for answer. This is also if you were to use Matlab as like a calculator. So you can do kind of basic mathematical functions. All of the syntax is kind of the same that you're probably used to. So 2 plus 2, that'll give you the answer of 4, and it'll store it in this variable ans. And it could do all sorts. So, if you do greater than, not greater than, to the power of sign, shift and 6 on a UK keyboard. That's like how to square it, or you do to the power of bigger numbers. You can do minus. It's an asterisk to multiply anything. So you can do kind of basic mathematical functions in Matlab. Once you've assigned something to a variable, you can then access that data by basically just using the name that you've just given it as this variable. So let's say I wanted to find out what 2 to the power of 8 is. I can go x to the power of 8. And there you go, that gives me the answer of 256, which presumably is 2 to the power of 8. And as you can see over here, it's set that value to equal ans. You can also assign variables kind of relative to one another. So let's say y, so we're defining a new variable here called y equals x plus 10. You can see here, so it's created y equals 12, and in the workspace over here, new variable with the value of 12. If you no longer want a variable, all you have to do is use the clear command. So you just type clear and then the name of the variable. If you want to get rid of all the variables in the workspace, start again like a clean slate, you can just go clear all, and that gets rid of everything. So why is assigning numbers to variables useful? Why say x rather than 2? Well, let's say that you were running an experiment and you wanted to gather participants' responses. There's a function in Matlab that does gather responses through the command window called input. So let's say x, rather than just equaling a number, equals input, and then brackets and apostrophe, choose a number, ... And I'm going to mute the output, because that's just good practice in general. So doing something like this means that whatever the output from the function, ironically called input, will be stored in the variable x. What the function input does, and I've talked about scripts and functions in the Matlab the software series. So a function, just to recap, does something to something. So you kind of give it an input and it gives you an output back. So this particular function, you give it an input and it will display that in the command window. And then the person can just type whatever in the command window and it will give you whatever they typed as an output. So in this case, that will store it in the variable x. So if I press enter, so you see it's presenting me with choose a number. So I'm just going to pick 1. And you can see in the workspace over here, we now have a new variable x, and that's got the value 1 because I just chose that number. You could then kind of, once you've got data from participants, there's all sorts of different functions you can use. It isn't just typing into the command window. But once you've got that, you can actually save this data to a file. So I have a couple of files already over here. I'll go into more detail about saving data in another episode. But if I just go load data.mat, so this is going to load this file over here, data.mat. Okay, so contained within that is a table. If I double click, you can open it here in this variable window, which is pretty similar to Excel in how it works. So we've got some timestamps here, so this looks like it's every 0.2 seconds. Some logicals, which are just going to be zeros and ones, and some numbers. Let's say I wanted to do a mathematical transformation. So let's say calculate the mean of this column. So because it's a table, and I'll go into kind of different data types later, but I'll just go data dot double the name of the column. I'll put that in the function mean. So that gives me the mean of this entire column here. So over the course of this video series, I'm hoping to kind of get you all to a point where you can start writing kind of basic scripts and functions that are going to do certain things that you might need over the course of your degree. So stay tuned for more of this, and thank you for watching.